Hi, everybody. It is Tiffany with Rock Bottom Wellness, and today we're going to be talking about how to read your thyroid hormone labs because it's a problem. It's a problem as far as understanding what they really mean, and actually if you're even getting the right lab work because it's not sort of standard of care. So you might need to ask and push a little bit to get the lab markers that you want in order to figure out and explain, it might explain some of the symptoms that you're struggling with. So before we get started on that, let's talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about me. If you're new here, or if you have, it's been a while since you've heard me talk about some of these things with regard to your health and thyroid health in particular, because that's something that I have dealt with for a long time. And it's kind of my passion to help people understand this a lot better so they can actually feel and function much better. But the problem is you have to be your own best self advocate. And that is what I had to do. I struggled for years and years with undiagnosed symptoms, only to be told I was just getting older at, 20 some years old, early 20s. I was told I was just getting older and that this was my new normal. And it was just because I was a female and had hormones to deal with. It was just all of these things that kept me stuck, kept me feeling like I was crazy, felt like I was a hypochondriac because I did not feel right at all. I had no energy. I was lethargic. I had severe depression. I had numerous things happening to me, and it was all just explained away by those things I had just mentioned. And it was super frustrating. And that lasted, and it lasted for probably another 10, 15 years at that point of me searching for answers, going to doctors. And then I was finally diagnosed with thyroid cancer that had spread to my lymph nodes. And I thought for sure that that was, in a weird way, the answer to all of my problems that had been going on for so long. Turns out that it only got worse because I was not getting the support I needed. And in a different way, I wasn't being looked at as the whole patient in a holistic approach. I was just being looked at as, your tumor marker levels, and that's what we were focusing on, and hyper focusing on the medications for that. And though I am grateful for, that process to keep cancer at bay and from keeping it from spreading more, there was no connection to how I was actually trying to feel and function throughout the day. And it was years to where I would just call myself pretty much non-functional. I was just faking it to make it all the time. I had to will myself through the days because of my debilitating fatigue, my terrible depression, anxiety. I mean, the list goes on with symptoms. But I did something different. I dug deep into my nutrition, even when they told me that nutrition or foods don't affect how I felt. That's where I knew I had to dig in because I had enough biochemistry to understand that it did not even make sense. And so that's where I dug in and, worked through it and have been in a better place for many, many years now. So that's why I'm here. And that's what brought me here. I quit my job and I went back to school, did everything kind of the hard way to get to do what I'm doing now. And so I am here to help you feel your best, but you have to understand things that you might not know, or you don't know what you don't know because you are just going along. You're going to your doctor appointments, you're getting told the same similar types of things. I hear this all the time, and we need to change that. So there is other ways to look at things, and we can get people feeling much better just by looking at the whole holistic approach and looking at the whole body. Okay, so on that note, if you are here live, let me know. I would love to see who's able to join us live, but if you're on the replay, that is amazing too. So please comment replay. I would love to hear about any thoughts you have on the thyroid markers as we go through this, or what you may have been told. So if you have any comments on that as we're going through this and as you're listening, please feel free to comment below, and I will definitely be in there to help you and answer those questions that you have that might come up. And then I want to talk to you about who this is for. So this is for someone that maybe has a similar story as mine, where you go to the doctor because you feel like garbage and you get told that everything is normal. All your lab test results come back normal. In fact, I even wrote a book about it for people who, feel like garbage but have normal test results. And this just keeps people stuck. So this is who this is for. And for those that are willing to be open to learn about something different and are really ready to do the thing that they need to do to help themselves feel better. So who is this not for? If you're only willing to listen to exactly what you've been told for however long, and that you don't need any of these lab markers because they don't tell you anything. This is the stuff I hear on a regular basis. If you are totally in line with that, then this is probably not going to be helpful or supportive for you. And if you are not open to hearing new things and are not really ready at this point to make some major changes and to really help yourself feel better, or if you're looking for a quick fix, this is probably not going to be for you. And so I just listed a bunch of the things of why I stayed struggling and kept struggling. And I know that this is common for a lot of people because I talk to women all the time who are dealing with this and the things that they're told by their providers. And this is not about bashing healthcare providers by any means, but it's just a reality that I'm seeing. I dealt with it firsthand for many years, and I'm seeing this in the people that eventually start working with me too. And it blows my mind the things that people are told about their health or what they can do or can't do about their health. So, what I just want to say is that, we're sick and tired of not being listened to and just being sort of pushed off because the lab says we're normal, and not even looking or listening to what we are feeling. We have to take our lab results and correlate that with our symptoms. And that is not being done often because a lot of providers have about 5 minutes. I think the average standard conventional process in a bigger healthcare system, I think the standard appointment is about 5 to maybe 10 minutes on the high end of things. I know in my experience with my person who is really helping me support my thyroid cancer management, I noticed our appointments would be at 30 minutes. And all of a sudden in the last few years, they were down to like 5 minutes. And you didn't even have time to ask questions. They were rushed. It's like, how can you really get to know what the person is feeling? It was literally just a response to what my lab results showed. That's all that was ever done. No fault to the provider, because this is how the system is set up. So I'm not trashing the provider. It's just this container that we are getting, cared for, care in air quotes too, right? The way that we're getting cared for, have the ability to, because of the timelines that these providers are on, the volume that they're out there to produce, it doesn't make it easy for them to listen to us or to be able to take the time. The other thing that we do to get in our way is we overcomplicate things. And I think I get the first prize in this. I overcomplicate a lot of things in my life, not excluding my health and nutrition and that kind of thing. It's hard because we hear so many things out in social media, especially now. There's experts on everything. There's, so much accessibility with Google and all that kind of thing. And then I think so many people have so many ideas in their head that they should do this and they should do that. And their mother did this and their sister did that, and that's what worked for them. And sometimes it's not the same for us. We are different. We are unique. We may need to kind of just break it down, go back to basics and start from scratch. And sometimes we have to get out of our own way. And I just see this a lot. We overcomplicate things a ton. And then it kind of goes back to the first thing. We don't have the right support. This is why we keep struggling. There is not the right support. We're not being listened to. People don't have the time to listen to us. And this is why I created my Fatigue Fix programs. And it's interesting because when I was figuring my own stuff out, trying to really help myself, when I was told that food doesn't affect how you felt, when I was desperate and searching for answers because I could barely function, I started digging in, and that's how I kind of created my signature program that I take everybody through. It's at different levels and variations, but I use friends and family as my guinea pigs, and they all had some good results in different ways. And that's where it stuck. And it started to be modified and adjusted and added to along the way. And this process is unique and customized for each person that goes through. So that is how I try to overcome some of these issues we've dealt with not being listened to. You know, we can get out of our own way and stop overcomplicating things. And there's for sure a bunch of support with all of these programs. So let's get into how to look at your thyroid labs. And I'm going to start with the first two markers. I think more than not, there's going to be two markers that people will be tested for. So if you are someone who goes, you know, thinking you might have a thyroid issue, just classic symptoms, which do overlap with a lot of other things, you can go to your doctor and say, "Hey, can I get a thyroid test?" And they'll say, "Yeah, sure, no problem. We'll just add this on, you know, to your other lab work." 9 times out of 10, unless you know the markers to look for. So I would probably save this video, get your pen and paper, write these markers down. And these are the ones that are going to be the most effective at kind of dealing with your symptoms, whatever they may be. So what I would say is the first marker for sure that you will get is the thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH. So this is a little bit, it's like a converse relationship. So the higher the number, the worse you feel. Okay, so the standard range, and they're all a little bit different depending on what lab you're looking at. The standard range is something like 0.5 to 4.5. I've even seen it used to be wider, up to 5 or 5.5. Now they've narrowed it a little bit. But what needs to be understood is these lab ranges are based on the demographics of people who are going to their doctors, having these labs drawn, and they kind of average them out. Think of kind of a bell curve. And if you fit within this range, that's what's called normal. Now, there's a normal range that's more in the conventional setting, but then there is a functional or an optimal range, which is what I go by. And what when I'm working with people, this is what we look at. And, you know, we can tweak and change some of the nutrients and supplements that they might be taking, work with their providers to help them adjust medications if necessary. If they're on thyroid medications, this is what we need to understand. Just because you're in the normal range, which is based on sick people, by the way, because you don't really go to the doctor unless you're sick. So that is kind of the irony of this. So you want your TSH optimally to be in that 0.5 to 1 to 1.5 maybe range. Now, you might get up to say 4 or 4.5, and your doctor might say, "Oh, you're fine. It's in the normal range. You could go on meds if you want. Maybe we could look on that." But nothing to see here. There would be really nothing done. You know, maybe when I've even worked with people who their TSH was up at 10, and their doctor was like, "Yeah, you could do something about it, but it's really not that big of a deal." Now, the interesting part about this is that your TSH isn't even an indication of the actual thyroid hormone level that you have in your cells. It is actually telling you how well the pituitary in the brain is communicating with the thyroid in your neck. So it's meaning that it's kind of like a thermostat in your house. Okay, so the pituitary and the thyroid get triggered by the messaging from the pituitary saying, "Hey, you need to produce more thyroid hormone," and so it'll dial up the dial down the TSH to produce more, and then vice versa. So it switches based on just that communication. That's really not anything for you to worry about, that part of it, but the point of the TSH is not to actually give you a level of thyroid hormone. It's just saying how well your brain and your thyroid are talking, basically. Okay, that's all it's doing. So ideally, you want to be between that 0.5 to 1.5 depending on symptoms, most people feel like that's sort of the sweet spot where people feel better. And so that's where we like to see it. If you are creeping up to that 2, the 3.0, something like that, that's when we can say, oh, there's something happening here, based on symptoms. If you're at that 3, 4, whatever, if you are feeling tired, if you're feeling like you're not able to lose weight or you feel like you're gaining weight, then that could be a sign that there's something off with your thyroid hormone. So we need to look further into that. And when you're working with someone who looks at the whole body, that's what we're able to do. Okay. So it's not just only about the thyroid. Okay. Then we look at numbers, and sometimes they're doing this. There are, if you have labs handy, or if you can look at your last set of labs, you'll often see a total number and then a free number. The free levels, the free levels of the T4, and then the other one I'll talk about in a second, are the ones that are going to be more informative because they are unbound and available to go to the tissues in your body, the cells in your body. And thyroid hormone has receptors on every cell in the body. That's why thyroid hormone is so important. Okay. We want, and I don't remember the exact range, but it's something like 0.7 or 0.8 to 1.8 or something like that. You kind of want to be in that, mid to, like, I don't know, kind of the middle of the road of that range. So we need the free T because it will convert into, I'm sorry, the T4. You need the free T4 because it converts into free T3. And free T4 or T4 thyroid hormone is something that is considered sort of the inactive form of your thyroid hormone, and it converts into the other one, the active one. So if you have to have an amount of this, like especially if you're not on any thyroid meds, you're going to want your levels to be around that mid range. And this does vary again by symptoms. I see people that are in the low end of the range and are feeling amazing and having enough T3. I'll explain that in a second. But you do want to have that at a sort of a nice moderate level. Okay. Then we get down to the free T3s. Sometimes you'll see a T3 reflex, or sometimes you'll see a total T3. Those numbers aren't as for either the T4 or the T3. The total numbers, when I look at those, and I know other providers that I work with, they don't really look at those either, because they want to see what's actually available to be, attached to the cells, where that hormone is going to be on the receptor at each cell. So remember, free T4, this one, converts into free T3. It does this by the use of the actual thyroid gland, and it does that also with the liver. The liver helps support that. There's other things that are involved too, but those are kind of the two big things when we think about of T4 to T3 conversion. Now, for someone like me, or someone who does not have a thyroid gland, or it's been radiated so that it's been killed off, sometimes they do that with Hashimoto's. This becomes part of the problem. Most people are then just treated with T4 only medication. That's sort of the standard of care. If you have a high TSH and not that great of a T4, free T4 level, the protocol is to give you Synthroid. That's kind of that's the gist. There's no looking at your symptoms, no looking at this level, the free T3. This we want in the top part of the range. We want it to be up in the 3 to 4 range. We want it 3.5, 3.8, 4.2. The ranges vary a little bit from lab to lab, but we want it to be in that top quarter of the range. This is your active thyroid hormone. If you have this on your labs, consider yourself lucky. And if you are looking for getting a full panel and you don't have a provider that will get that for you, let me know in the comments, say lab, and I will give you a link so you can get your own done. And you can get a full thyroid panel and get that done, at least have a baseline so you know with what you're working. and then you can make arrangements or make changes accordingly. But I will tell you, a few doctors that I've worked with over the years, even with my own issues with thyroid, a lot of them won't even do the free T3 or some of the other numbers because they don't really know what to do. I mean, I've talked to some providers too that say that they were trained, and this is from MDs to NPs, they are trained to test the TSH, sometimes the T4, and if those are out of range, you get Synthroid. That is it. There's no other thought process with it. So that's what I'm here to help explain to you. The other level that I forgot to put in here, and I'm gonna put it on here now so I can show you, is, let's see here. There it is, reverse T3. So this is kind of a funky little guy, and this for sure will not be tested on your regular lab unless you have a doctor that knows that you are understanding of your health, you're an advocate for yourself, and that you're trying to get to the bottom of things, and they know that you're, I don't know, they're just willing to work with you. They might draw this for you and maybe learn about it together if they don't already know. So what reverse T3 is sort of an inert, inactive storage form of the T3, the active thyroid hormone. So remember, I said that, and this kind of gets a little complicated, but it's hopefully I'm explaining it okay. The free T4 converts into free T3. Our free T3 is active. That's our metabolic hormone. That is our energy hormone with regard to the thyroid. Now, sometimes when free T4 isn't converting properly due to nutrient deficiencies, stress is a big one, and maybe too much T4 medication like a Synthroid or levothyroxine is the generic form. What happens is it converts not into the active free T3, it converts into the reverse T3. And the reverse T3, it's locked in there. The active hormone is locked in there. It can't do anything. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't help your body at all. So sometimes I'm seeing labs where people's reverse T3 is in the normal range again. It's in that range by the lab, but we want to see it in that optimal range between 9 and 12. Okay. People will be at 23 and they'll, be told it's normal, but that's not. So what it's showing us is that your conversion from T4 to T3 is glitching. And that is why the T3 is probably not at a really good level to help support your energy and your metabolism and your brain fog and your resistance to weight loss and that kind of thing. So this is where we need to have at least a baseline to see where you're at so you can help yourself feel better. All right, so hopefully that made sense. If there are ever any questions, please comment below. If you have had a reverse T3, I want you to comment RT3 in the comments in this video, RT3. I'd be loving to see who's actually able to get some of these labs. All right, so there are two other markers that I think should be done at a baseline, maybe once a year, depending on symptoms, maybe every couple of years if nothing shows up. So these are antibodies towards your thyroid hormone. The first one would be, which is, I would say, more commonly drawn than the others, but I think there should be a baseline of getting both of these done. TPO antibodies. This is thyroid peroxidase. And when this antibody shows up, again, the range is like under 40 or something like that, under 20 or under 40. I can't remember the levels, but my reasoning for wanting it to be 0 is because if there is some elevation of antibodies, what that means is that your immune system is mounting a response to your very own thyroid gland. This is autoimmunity. And when cases are where the TPO and the other one are elevated, you would be diagnosed with Hashimoto's. But I will tell you, I have worked with people who have had elevated antibodies for more than several labs, maybe a couple, 2-3 years, and have never once been told they have Hashimoto's or thyroid autoimmune disease or Graves' disease or whatever. Graves' disease has some different markers that I'm not going to talk about here. It's less common, and it's not something that I, deal with very often. So I'm just going to be talking about the more common Hashimoto autoimmunity. So if you have any antibodies to your thyroid, that means your immune system is saying, hey, your thyroid doesn't belong here. Let's try fight it off. Okay. So that's why any amount of the antibody, even if it's not out of the range, indicates to me that there's some inflammation going on in your body. We need to tamp that inflammation down. And obviously, in my wheelhouse, we're going to be talking about nutrient, stress management, lifestyle, and that kind of thing to help support those antibody levels. Now, if the antibodies keep creeping up, then there's probably a good chance, if you're not already on medications, that you're going to need to be on medications so that those antibodies don't totally mess with your thyroid, it will destroy it after a while. I've seen antibodies in the thousands. I've seen them in the 300s, the 500s, and I have seen them come down drastically with lifestyle and nutrient interactions. So that alone can be very supportive of that. The other antibody that needs to be looked at is TG antibodies. Sometimes it'll say anti-thyroglobulin antibodies, something like that. Every lab just has a little bit different way to do things. So what I would say to here too, kind of the same thing, is if it's supposed to be under 9 or 20, I can't remember the labs on this because they vary a little bit. But again, you want it to be 0 or super low, right? And once they start creeping up in that range, that means there's some inflammation going on. There's an inflammatory process, which is autoimmunity. There can be some other reasons why this can, flag sometimes. But generally speaking, if they're floating up, if they're getting out of range, you for sure need to be dealing with this, whether it be medication, but for sure nutrients, lifestyle things, changing up your foods. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do, and it looks a little different for everybody. Okay, so if anybody has had antibodies tested for thyroid on your labs, I want you to type in antibody. Okay, so comment antibody below if you've had these done. All right, then your next steps. Let's talk about that. So if you are struggling to get these labs, or if you have labs and you don't know what the heck they mean, reach out. I want you to comment app in the comments, and I can reach out to you and see, you can fill out my form, watch my program video, and just see. It takes about 5 minutes, and just see if there's something that makes sense for us to work together with this, and I can help you get these in check, or help guide and refer you to where you need to go to get this taken care of. This alone can help you feel and function better, whether or not you need medication, or whether you have a diagnosis of something, or maybe you have something that hasn't been diagnosed yet. Lifestyle and nutrition interventions are game changers for helping support this. So that would be your next steps. Reach out. I want you to comment below app, and then we'll get that out to you so you can get support in that, because these are the things that I waited way too long for. I know that if I would have even known that there was more than just the TSH, that's what they did to me back in the day, only tested TSH. It was always in the normal range, but when I looked at the older labs, it was always in the high end of the range, which makes you feel worse. You don't feel better when your labs are high or your TSH is high. And so this is where I want people to understand that if you get the whole picture together sooner than later, you can actually avoid going down, this horrible rabbit hole, this tunnel of just feeling like there's nothing you can do and getting sick. And I will say too, that if your thyroid is imbalanced, if things aren't optimal there, that is going to cause stress in your body. You're going to have elevated cortisol. You're going to have chronic adrenaline going in there. You're going to have symptoms from that. And when then that happens, then your other hormones like your progesterone, estradiol, testosterone are going to be shunted. Those are going to become imbalanced. There's so many young women in their 20s with low progesterone because of all the stress going on in their bodies and in their lives. So this is why it's really important to have this stuff in check and know your numbers in order to help yourself feel better. So what I would say to you is comment app if you want the link to the labs. Like I said, say labs, and you can get your own. If you don't have a provider, we'll get you the whole thing. Unfortunately, that's a little bit harder to find than I feel like it should be, but you can get your own labs done, and you can you can have me help you interpret them, and I can guide you to the right place. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. Glad you're here. Again, comment if you're watching on the replay or if you're here live, and reach out if you have any questions. All right. Have an awesome day, and I'll be back next week for another topic that you vote on. All right. Take